This is Top Shop Podcast.
Shop Podcast.
Top Shop Podcast.
Podcast for automotive service business owners by Paul Donahue.
Hey, today, folks, special guest. I think Dana's going to take the cake. You know, we're always looking for auto repair shop owners that have 10 or more years experience in the industry. Dana has been in business 49 years in one day as of today. I just asked him, was he thinking of retiring? But, you know, so I think, Dana, this is great. We really appreciate you taking your time. I own Advanced Digital Automotive Group. And one of the things I wanted to do was create a podcast because there's a trend. And it's called people retiring. Okay,
I've heard that.
Just talking to a guy down in Alabama saying, man, you wouldn't believe the guys are retiring. They're not selling their shop. They just retire. So they're taking 10, 20, 30 years of experience and expertise with them. So I'm on a mission with Top Shop Podcast to interview 100 people that are at that retirement time or age where they're thinking about retiring in the next 5 or 10 years and doing this, recording their expertise and their experience. So Dana Meyer Auto Care is in Albany, California. Dana Meyer, guest today. Thank you very much for your time. Let's get started. How did you get in the auto repair industry?
Well, more than 50 years ago, my brother actually owned a shop. I left college to come back to California Bay Area and was going to go to college, but they didn't have the courses I wanted. So I showed up at my brother's shop and he handed me a wrench and said, tighten that. That was in 1971. So I've been making my living working on cars since then.
Wow. So how did you get your own shop open? How did you do that?
Well, I sort of had disagreements of several kinds with my brother at the time, and I decided that I should go off on my own. I actually had a garage in the back of my house, and I started working there. Old Sunscope and working on just Japanese cars. I didn't work on domestic cars until much later. I'll get to that. And then I started looking at the idea of getting a shop, and there was a shop for sale here in Albany. So in 1975, I opened my own business in Albany, working by myself for probably 10 months, thinking I was doing fine. There's money to be made. I was making money, paying all the bills, and was kind of happy. But, you know, it just gets tiresome just doing everything by yourself. So I hired a service advisor, and then the next thing I knew, I was hiring technicians, and then I became a manager with more and more techs. In 1979, I added a machine shop, and that was fun. Never made money on it, but we had the best machine shop around. And in those days, nobody else was doing aluminum heads. So we were doing BMWs, Hondas, and things like that. Basically, mostly Japanese cars or German cars, because the domestic cars were still big chunks of iron. And there was a need for people who could work on that. Then later, I had a chance to get a building, the building I'm actually in now, in 1997. So I had two buildings about 200 feet apart. But the first building burned down in 2003. So now I was left with this building, and I've been slowly growing in it till we're maxed out in space. We have 4 hoists and 5 techs.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do it again. How many?
4 hoists and 5 techs.
Okay, 5 techs. Okay. How many do you have now?
That's it. Yeah, before the buildings burned down, I think I had about 16, 17 people working for me. But the fire was in 2003, so I don't remember everything anymore. But business was good, and I first thought people would just love it, you know, because I had so many people working for me. Let's get 2 shifts, 12 hours each, and, you know, you get a 3-day work week and 4 days off. Who's going to argue about that? Well, apparently everybody. Nobody wanted to do that. So I whittled down to about 3 techs at that point and a couple service advisors. So it's been ebbs and flows pretty much for staffing and locations. And at this point, I actually just put in an offer on another building and business.
Okay, awesome. Congratulations. I hope you get it. I mean, what really motivated you in the beginning to just start your own shop? Or was it just, you know, you started turning wrenches, you know, you just kind of morphed into it? Wasn't anything that you really...
Well, part of it was, I mean, I really like work on cars. Personally, I think it's probably the best business you can absolutely have. There's no other business where somebody can tow a car in, drive it out that afternoon.
Right.
Everybody wins. Maybe somebody whose hot water heater blows up, but you don't keep going back every couple of months to get a new hot water heater. So, and we get established relationships. You're friends with your clientele. To me, I wanted to keep doing it. It made sense to me, all those things that moved and pushed up and down and went around in circles, that I totally understood how that works. So it just seemed like I should continue. But the real reason, I don't think I would recommend put their own name on the business anymore. But the reason I put my name on the business is because I wanted to everybody know who was responsible. And the reason for that was my previous boss had been in and out of small claims court because he was so dogmatic about him being right about everything that I didn't. I liked the name of the business, but I wanted people to know that it was me who was answering the questions and he was responsible.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you I often work with shop owners, and when they're newer, like I just got off a call earlier with one that wants us to handle their digital presence, the name of the shop and the logo came up. And I said, you have to think 10 and 20 years down the road, your exit strategy. So you get a good clientele going and you get a good digital presence. You sell the digital presence along with the reviews and everything else. In fact, you get a lot more money for the business when you rank at the top of Google and you have lots of reviews, because every one of those reviews are worth money. It's much easier to sell if it's, something Auto Care and not Bob's Auto Care, something like that. So, yeah. So here's a good one I love to ask. What challenges did you face in the early days? What were your bigger challenges, you think?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is understanding how we have to negotiate things differently if you actually have employees who are expected to do certain things. It was hard for me at the beginning to really understand why technicians' attitude towards repairs was, well, if it was my car, I would just fix this, next weekend on the weekends, come in Saturday and fix it. And to convince them that if they get behind the steering wheel and they look at the dash and they see a warning light on, that they need to say something.
Right.
Because the customer thinks you're the professional. If you see a light on, you better say something about it. And I remember that conversation at that point. I was the only person that I had hired that didn't have a 4-year or 5-year college degree.
Wow.
And I'm trying to explain that a customer doesn't want to see us that often. You might be able to come in and do a head gasket on your Datsun 510 in an hour on Saturday, but that customer, when you say you need a head gasket in a month, they don't want to wait a month. They want it now because the car's in the shop. And the other is, of course, learning how to work with people. There's a lot of different styles of managers. Some of them, I'll just say in one of the ASC meetings, we've had a long conversation about it, what kind of boss you were. Were you a boss like the boss you last worked for, or were you the opposite? And there were people who did both. Thought their previous boss had been a great mentor, but others who said, I would never treat my customers or my customers as they treated people. And I'd rather be known as the one that people would be glad to have worked for and helped out. And I've had a number of years that have gone off and started their own shops, gone to dealerships, done service writing, whatever. And I'm glad for them, sort of boost themselves up after the time with me.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question I'd like to ask. Can you remember, in your 49 years, a major setback? You probably had more than one, but let's just choose one. A major setback that you had and how you overcame it.
Well, I think the biggest one financially was the 2008-2009 crash. Of course, I get political, but if I had some rocks, I wouldn't mind throwing some. But the real effect was that the cash flow just about disappeared that I was used to. I laid off. I had somebody actually headhunt one of my service advisors, my most experienced, and I actually told her, take the job. And less experienced guy and myself, we just worked for a couple of years until things came back around.
Wow.
But it was scary. I mean, I was just telling my son who works for me that those years, there was 1 year where I had probably $20,000 in bounce check fees.
Wow.
Pretty significant.
Yeah, that's pretty significant. So, but you made it through. How did you make it through? You had good savings, you were still getting enough business to pay at least the bills and scrape by. I mean, how'd you make it through that?
Well, I believe I did get some loans from family.
Wow.
And a couple of times I got really short-term loans from people for like $5,000 for payroll or something like that week, and then I pay it back in smaller increments. The main thing was our treatment of our customers had absolutely nothing to do with the financial condition. We continued to do the service that we promised we would do. California, of course, we have Bureau of Automobile Repair. We have estimating requirements, things that now everybody will try to stand by. But in California, since 72, Bureau of Automobile Repair has controlled a lot of the paperwork around what we do. So you estimate, you charge what you need to charge to be open hopefully the next day, and be honest about the work. Don't oversell, and we just kept plugging away. The two of us at the front counter and 3 technicians, and we came out the other end.
Wow. So basically, you begged and borrowed, you kept your quality the same, and you made it through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Congratulations. Yeah, I know a lot of A lot of businesses folded after the '09. I mean, a lot. I'm glad that you made it through. Has mentorship played any role in your career? I know some shop owners, when they were younger getting started, they had older shop owners that either in the area or in other areas that they kind of leaned on. Did anybody by any chance play any mentorship for you in your journey?
Well, I would say for me, one of the things that made the most difference was the Automotive Service Councils of California. We used to go to conventions and we have speakers and a number of people in California, members. And truthfully, one of the things, sometimes I had mentors sort of backwards. I would hire a really tech and I would watch them and I would learn from them and I would recognize the kind of training or management they prefer. So because there are some people who want to see it happen, they want to watch it, learn that way. There's some who can read. So in some cases, my employees were training me about how to train them.
Okay. What changes do you see in the industry?
Goodness.
Yeah. Where do you start, right? ADAS, guys, electric, hydrogen, EVs.
Yeah, all those.
All the above.
Propane, fuel cell, nitrogen, air, all these other things that are coming out. And some of them I'm actually quite comfortable with. We already have a EV inspection program and plenty of hybrids for many, many years. Having been a Toyota and Honda shop originally, it took until about 1979 when I decided to open the second building so we could do domestic cars because people were saying, why won't you work on my Chevy or my Dodge van? I can't afford to buy that Nissan one. So that's why I opened the second shop. There are things that happen like direct injection. Sounds like such a great idea, but come on, guys. So anyway, sometimes there are great changes. Sometimes there's changes that do not achieve the goal that was intended. Witness the fact that even, Toyota now has a 2 injection system. So you got the direct injection and the other one on the intake valves to clean the valves and help clean out the intake so that you don't get that carbonizing and deposits from blow-by in the engine intake anymore. So changes like that are much, considering how long I've been doing it. I think fuel injection itself was a marvelous step forward for engine control. Carburetors look nice. They are a pain to adjust. They're a pain to rebuild. You can't necessarily even know if you rebuilt it, if it's going to work. Fuel injection car, you take the injector out and put a new one in.
There you go.
It's fixed.
Yeah. Fuel injectors doubled the oil reserves. That's what I remember. So they were getting back, the doomsdayers were, we're going to run out of oil. And someone invented a fuel injector and I think we doubled or tripled the fuel mileage on cars. Yeah. And so, we got a lot more oil now. What about those? That's more of an older change. What about a more recent change? And how are you guys staying adaptive? I mean, are you messing with the EVs at all?
Yeah, we have an EV service established. We've also gone to several trainings on hybrids and electric cars. We've sent one of my techs already to Berkeley Automotive's Tesla training program. Mm-hmm. I tend to send more. There's also various conventions that have classes on EVs, hybrids, other things like hydrogen and propane cars. We feel confident in taking care of just about anything when someone calls us. I don't do any European cars except Volkswagen. I mean, after all, first Volkswagen I did was in like 1968, so it's really hard to say I don't work on Volkswagens. But no BMWs, Volvos, Audis, you name it.
Shop culture. There's a lot of talk about shop culture. Is there anything that you've done to maintain a strong work culture, shop culture in your shop? I've already heard you mention it, making sure that you produce quality work.
Yeah, the quality work and honesty are probably the 2 most important steps. In fact, I will tell my staff almost every time we have a shop meeting lunch, every Wednesday we eat together. I will say that this is not our business. This is a people business. We just take care of people and we happen to fix their cars as a result of taking care of people's problems. The problem they are having, of course, is with their car or their maintenance or whatever it is, but it's all about the people. If we can't do the job that we said we would do, price we said we would do, be honest with the repairs, then we shouldn't be in business.
Yeah, you mentioned something on my next question. How really hot topic with all auto repair shop owners is how do we find, hire, and retain good techs? A family that eats together stays together. So one of the advices that I give, and I'm getting all these tidbits put together, and I'm going to put it together in a video. What are the most proven ways auto repair shop owners have found, hired, and retained top techs? One of them, you eat together with your staff every Wednesday. I'm hearing this quite a bit. There's a lot of shops that they'll shut down on a Friday at noon, and that's it. Some of them go to Sam's or Costco and they buy the burgers and dogs, and they do that on the grills. Back, some of them, they just order out lunch, and all the guys sit together and just eat and shoot the, whatever. So that's one of the things that you do for your shop culture. You do a lunch every Wednesday, huh? With all staff?
Yeah, and we give opportunities for people to take online training or in-person training.
Okay.
One of the most popular, of course, is World Pack. Somebody's horn, the STX show. They have the cruises every other year. Go hang out with a whole bunch of other people who do the same thing you do and talk about the same things. Is rewarding. And I have to say also, there's lots of different training companies out. I've been with several over the years. I'm with one now, and I think that the important thing about any training program is that you have an opportunity to stay in touch with and talk with, relate to do what you do. A life outside of business, in fact, I expect it. Mm-hmm. But when you are sitting at your desk or talking to your customers, it's nice to have the depth of experience where you talk with other people about how do you respond to this person's question? How do you handle this problem when they say, you did that, just quote one person once, the last idiot who touched my car, how do you turn them into somebody who will find value in your work and come back the second time so they don't leave you and go to the next shop and say, the last idiot.
The idiot that worked on my car, right, yeah. Just curious, have you heard of Vision, KC? Vision?
Yeah, I have heard of it.
I went to that trade show. I've never been to a trade show before, and I was an exhibitor, and I advocated for all auto repair shop owners. I talked to a lot of owners today, how long have you guys been coming to Vision? And, oh, yeah, X amount of years. And, and obviously you like it. And I heard nothing but really good things. And I talked to first-time shop owners, not exhibitors, but first-time shop owners that had been there, and they were really getting a lot out of it. So I'm a member of Milwaukee Midwest Auto Care Alliance, and I really want to promote the vision that she puts together, because that training program that she puts together is phenomenal. So a lot of these training programs used to just be sales pitches for whatever their product was. Well, Sherry Hamilton that runs Vision, she took care of that right away. So they can mention something at the very end in 5 minutes, but it's like 2 or 3 day or 12-hour, I forgot how many hours courses there are. But it's all educational for these shop owners. So, and that's why it's grown so fast, because people can really come and listen to the information. So I love this one. What advice would you give to a shop owner that's just getting started this year?
Well, other than having money in the bank, have a long range view, at least a 5-year plan, if not even longer.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just sort of patch it together as you're going. And if you do need any financing, if you look at any of the lists of things that people should prepare for, going to a bank for a loan, whatever you need to either start, buy a building, whatever it is, you are expected to have some finances figured out, how much business you want to do, how much profit you're going to make, what you're going to do with the money, how many people you're going to hire. All of that stuff is important to have figured out to some degree. I won't say anybody ever gets it 100% right, but if you're thinking in long term rather than just say, oh, that place is for rent, I'm going to go rent it, and I don't care what the rent is because I know I'm a good mechanic and I can fix anything that comes in the door. There's so much more. The management stuff, the paperwork, federal, state, county paperwork that has to be done, city paperwork. It's just amazing.
Yeah, digital marketing.
Yeah, and that too.
There's 20 different areas of digital marketing. You need to be an expert in each one of them to do it effectively. 20.
Yeah.
4 separate areas just to do a website. SEO to determine all the keywords and how the pages should be written. Writers that know how to write the content for auto repair shops based on Google's new algorithm, which is EAT, EAT, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. Then you got to have front-end designers that know what the heck they're doing. And then you have a back-end developer that puts in all the plugins that serves all the functions of the different things. And none of these people know each other's job. So it's just like, just like, yeah. So
same is true in a garage.
Yeah. The guy that's busting the tires and does the balancing doesn't know crap about doing this other type of work, or, so they specialize in each area. So can you share for someone who's been in the business 49 years, I think you can answer this question pretty well. Work-life balance. Can you have any? Because even I got caught. I just did a video on shop burnout and what to recognize. And then as I'm reading my script that my writing staff researched, I'm thinking, shit, I think I got burnout. So because I'm putting in the hours too. But, I'm building a growing company, and we do it the old-fashioned way by providing value. Why I podcast.
I think to sort of answer the question, there's several stages. And one, the first part is to feel that you've done a good job during the work time that you've got. And then after that, I have a hobby of some kind that takes you away from thinking about, it doesn't matter what you might tend to think about at night. Oh my God, that customer wasn't happy when they left. I'm going to get a 1-star rating. What am I going to do? You spend a sleepless night. It's not worth it. The one thing I've learned is patience. That there's ebbs and flows in business, and if you're patient, downturns will turn into upswells. Is that trademarked yet?
Right.
But to have a hobby or something else that you do other than that, whatever it is for you, I sing in several choruses, and you can't really think about much else except music when you're singing. The same thing is true if you're in a bowling league or whatever.
Right.
Or if you have a date night with your partner, doing work with your church, or all of those things save that angst about being at work. And I know there are some people, their hobby is to wait for the front door to roll down so they can work on their race car or their go-kart or whatever it is. As long as it's something that gives them personal reward and isn't related to the drive to make money, I think that's how you separate your life.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Utah, but I purposely left Utah so I could go back to Colorado, where I just moved from, so I could go skiing. And that's my hobby. And that's what gets me out of my head, by the way, and for me, because when I'm going down that run, I'm not thinking about anything except that tree right in front of me.
Yeah. And how to get around it. Yeah.
I like to ski trees and bumps, so that's my hobby. And then in the summer, I mountain bike. I think that's a really, really important tip, Dana. It's very important to have some sort of hobby outside of work. I even bought these remote control helicopters that don't get much time with it. Anything that just gets your mind after a long day that just kind of, you can only focus on it.
Just erase that day.
Yeah.
Where in Colorado are you?
Oh, I'm in Dillon, Colorado. I lived here for 10 years. And then the houses here are $800 to $1,000 a square foot, which is a little out of my price range since I wanted a large house. So I went to Utah. I live in Pleasant View now, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Got a big, beautiful house. I don't have winter, though. I only had snow in my yard 3 weeks this year, and I love snow. So here, when I lived here, I lived at 9,200 feet, and I had snow in my yard 6 months out of the year.
Yeah, I get you. I lived in Glenwood Springs, Colorado 1 year, and that was fabulous.
Totally. Yeah.
But speaking of Utah, I had one of the best ski adventures ever in my life at Park City.
PC?
I still remember the Saturn Bowl.
Okay. I like Deer Valley. I go every year. I got a condo in PC, just a timeshare thing. And so I go the same week every week, the week right before President's Weekend when it gets slammed. Great time to go, man. It's full season. We usually get snow. I usually look out and get snow almost every week. And Deer Valley is an awesome, awesome resort to ski. They have whole mountainsides full of mogul runs, and I love moguls. Anyway, so hobbies are super important. That way you're focusing on only that, whatever that thing is that you're doing at that time. So it's really important too. You've been around for 50 years. You made it through like 08, 09 debacle. You made it through COVID. Yeah. So any particular tips about managing finances that would be beneficial for the other shop owners out there?
Well, the biggest thing is if you're starting out, you don't understand what's deductible and what isn't. You have a big loan, the only thing that's deductible is the interest, and the principal is on your balance sheet, not on the profit or loss statement. So you might think you have a lot of money, but the next time that loan payment comes in, you got to pay that payment, interest and principal, and the principal just disappears right out of your bank account. So you didn't have as much money as you thought. And lastly, talk to other people who are in the business, find out what they do for bookkeeping. There are bookkeepers that specialize in garages and establishing profit and loss statements that show you what you're actually making and what you're spending on parts, employees, all advertising. All of those things can tell you whether or not you're going to survive. And the fact that you've survived more than 2 years, you're already ahead of the game for a lot of people.
Right.
And there are books and magazines that are worth reading. There's probably 20 different garage-located, focused businesses, everything from alignment shops to tire shops to the new one that's out, Auto Service Leader, I think is really top drawer. It's not filled with advertising. It's got articles that are more than 10-second reads that are actually in depth. So I would look for Auto Service Leader in his magazine. And there are lots of books. One of my local ASC people wrote one called 1 Week, One Thing. It's just like any other time management thing. It's about learning how to decide you're going to actually accomplish something this week. And you pick it and you do it that week. And of course, we all have the problem of such a really long checklist of things we have to do. And sometimes you have to learn to prioritize the things that are important for you to do so that you can get any of them done. Otherwise, you just end up moving piles of paper around your desk saying, well, I'm going to do that, then I'm going to do that, then I'm going to do that. Next thing you know, all you've done is move piles of papers around your desk.
Can you share a memorable customer experience that you had that reflects your shop's business values and values? I'm sure you have a lot of them, actually.
I had a lot, and basically I couldn't for the life of me say one exact one, but I think that the example that I would use is we still give a 2-year, 24,000-mile warranty, and there are warranties on parts by manufacturers and various businesses that sell to us, and there have been times, because we're a small business, we can afford to do an extended warranty in a sense that somebody's water pump goes out at 25 months. So then, we'll get the new water pump from whoever we bought it from, and we'll negotiate maybe half pay from them, or we'll just do it. If they're good customers, we know they've been maintaining their car and there's nothing that they could have done to make whatever it was not fail.
Right. Yeah. Nothing on their part. Right. Yeah. You take it case by case and do whatever you can to help customers.
We even had one guy who we did an engine in 22,000 miles later, he came back because there was a problem. He couldn't even prove that he actually ever changed the oil. But we split the cost with him because we assumed that somebody who just got a new engine in his car is going to actually maintain it. So we learn on the other side that we need to have a few more disclaimers sometimes about what our warranty covers is, assuming that you're actually doing the regular maintenance that's required by the manufacturer or by our standards. And I will even talk to people, they ask, well, how often should I really change the oil? And my first question to them is, how long do you want to keep the car? And if they say they want to get buried in it, I'd say you change it every 4,000 miles.
Buried in it, right.
Then 3,000 or 4,000 miles. But if you want it to last, 100,000 miles, then go ahead and do whatever the manufacturer says, because I don't believe in 7,500 or 10,000 mile oil changes. But if the manufacturer is willing to stand by it and their warranty is 100,000 miles, then go ahead and do that. Just make sure if there's any problems at 100,000 miles, you're trading it in or you're selling it.
Okay. I've been driving Porsche turbos for quite a few years now, and I change the oil every 5. And they say, oh, no, you don't have to change the oil. It's a waste of money. Just wait till 10. I'm like, no.
Yeah, really.
Now, I'm changing it every 5. And I feel guilty doing 5. I should change it every 3, but 5. So anyway, Dana, really appreciate your time today on the podcast, your valuable insight. I hope there's some other shop owner out there that listened, that there was something that rang a bell with them. You mentioned that you actually was starting to answer one of my last questions is, can you recommend any books, resources, or tools? And you had mentioned that book. What was that again?
1 Week, One Thing.
1 Week, One Thing. Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch more that I've built up over the years. That one just happens to be sitting here so I can remember the title. Right. And the mini magazines, there's Ratchet Wrench and all these others. But Auto Service Leader is the first one that is really just designed for owners and managers. There's minimal amount of advertising. The only advertising is by people who support the magazine. They're likely to be people who will give a written article in the magazine. It's nice to read something without having to wade through all the advertising.
Right. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Great. Thanks, Dana. I appreciate everything.
For additional automotive resources and exclusive content, follow us on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch all our episodes. Thanks again for joining us in the driver's seat, and we'll see you next time for another thrilling episode of Top Shop.